All right, so this is going to be one of those news of the days kind of videos. I wasn't around yesterday, Friday the 13th. I was working a very long day. So I missed the whole Mitch Marner signing extravaganza. So let's get to that first. Toronto Maple Leafs have signed Mitchell Marner to a 6-year, 10.893 AAV. Yes, I know, that's a lot of money. Now, if you're not familiar with him, he shoots right. He's 22 years old. He's from Markham, Ontario. He's 6 foot. Really? 6 foot? 175 pounds, soaking wet. Do I think he's overpaid? Yeah, probably. I mean, the consensus is it's somewhere between 1.5 to 2.5 of an overpayment on him. And this whole thing got rushed because I don't know if you've been following. 3 days ago, I believe, I want to say it's Elliot Friedman reported that Mitch's group turned down a 7 or 8 year deal worth about $11 million per year back in June, and the Leaf fan base were already probably upset with him in his corner to begin with. Maybe it was more directed at his agent and his father, Paul Marner, at the time. But once they heard this, they really started to turn on him. And maybe that's part of the reason why helped speed this up a bit more. That, and of course, not wanting him to miss any more training camp or anything like that. So far, he's only missed 1 day because of the signing. So that's good. But Kyle Dubas, I think he's been a great general manager so far in terms of the moves that he's made and where he's steering the ship and so on and so forth. But when it comes to signing the core players, I mean, he's done it, which is fantastic. And I know I'm nitpicking here, but Austin Matthews is making $11.634 million over 5 years. He got walked straight to UFA status, and I think that's especially was a contention with Leaf fans, you know, paying him that kind of money and not getting an 8-year deal out of it. So I can see why they'd be upset. John Tavares, of course, signed that 7-year deal worth $11 million as UFA. The talk was he would turn down $13 million to play for other teams in order to play for his hometown Leafs. It still seems like a little bit much, maybe closer to 10. That's, yeah. And then there was, of course, the whole William Nylander fiasco that went all the way until the last minute in December last season, and he got a 6-year deal worth $6.92366, and that was seen as an overpayment at the time as well. So none of these core guys anyway, seem to have taken a hometown discount, you know, to try and keep the team together. And because of that, the Leafs, yeah, they're way over the cap right now. The cap's what, $81.5 million. The Leafs are at just under $95 million. But they do have a lot of LTIR that's going to take them off that, starting with Nathan Horton and David Clarkson, of course, 5.3 and 5.25 respectively. Then, the beginning of the season, Zach Hyman's going to be injured. He makes just over $2 million. Travis Dermott makes just under $1 million. He'll be out with a shoulder for a little while longer, too. So they'll have to move some guys around and finesse that between the farm system and the club, but everything should fit. But where does that leave them afterwards? You know, in terms of perhaps trying to improve the team during trade deadline. They're going to have to ship a body out. They're not going to, you know, because there's just going to be no room. And next year, the only defenseman who doesn't come off the books is Morgan Riley. So that's, you know, a future problem as well. And yeah, I know, I don't want to get too ahead of myself here, but if you're looking at the big picture, it is what it is. Yeah, so moving on here, the Dallas Stars, right shot defenseman, Julius Honka asked for a trade a couple days ago, if you remember that. Now, he's 23 years old. He shoots right, which is especially valuable in the NHL these days. He was drafted by Dallas in the first round, 14th overall, 2014. He's from Finland, 5'11", and he's 180 pounds. Now, this kid, for whatever reason, just has not blossomed in Dallas or given much of a chance, it seems, because he didn't play the last 35 games of the season and none in the playoffs. Now, he hasn't had spectacular numbers, really. I mean, in 29 games this past season, he had 4 points and was a -2. 2017-18, he played 42 games with 4 points and a -1. And in 2016-17, he had a 16-game cup of coffee with 5 points and a -4. So not terrible numbers per se, but I don't really have enough insight into his game to explain why he hasn't been playing more. Maybe it has to do more with the coach just not vibing him. Dallas fans, I would especially like to hear about your insight on this one. I know there's at least their top 4 Dallas's defense is locked up right now, but still no room for this guy. As a 5 or a 6. I mean, Polak's gonna make the team, so maybe not this year per se, but last year. I mean, that was a thing, and I know they're different players, but Polak, Roman Polak. In any case, so it's been rumored that the Canadiens, it's been reported, by Elliot Friedman and a couple of other sources that the Montreal Canadiens are interested because they just need some more scoring from their blue line. I think the highest scoring came from, Shea Weber, around 28 points. So they could desperately use some more help in that retrospect. And then, of course, the Carolina Hurricanes are actually interested in as well, but it depends on a few things with them, specifically speaking about Justin Falk, how they're trying to move him to Anaheim. There's been discussion there, but they're waiting on the stipulation is they're trying to see if he'll sign an extension with the Anaheim Ducks before he gets traded over there. So the whole Congo line's been held up in Carolina because of that, but that would open up a spot for Julius Honka. We'll see where that goes in the coming days. On to the Winnipeg Jets. Patrick Laine is going to go train in SC with SC Bernin. I don't really know if I'm saying that correctly. A Switzerland team who his former world championship coach just happens to be coaching at the moment right now. And when they interviewed him, he, of course, dispelled any rumors about him signing with the team or playing during the regular season. It's only to train with them. However, Laine has said said to the media that he'll be playing somewhere next season. Seems kind of like a little bit of a threat, maybe just a small one. Now, of course, Winnipeg has a problem because they got Connor they got to sign, and Laine, and there's been offer sheet talk about Connor and where that's gonna go. Yeah, it looks like they may have to sign a bridge deal for one or both of these guys. Perhaps Laine is just asking for too much money right now. Now that Mitch Marner has been signed, maybe all the dominoes were supposed to fall in terms of the RFAs. How that will influence this, the whole Laine camp, we'll see. Next up, we have the Minnesota Wild have signed Jared Spurgeon to a 7-year deal worth $7.575 million. That's an extension that he signed as he is. He's got one more year where he'll be making just over $5 million, and then his contract kicks in 2020-21. He's 29 years old right now. So when he's 30, this takes him to 37 years old. Why would you... Okay. Now, he's a great defenseman. He's also, albeit his small frame, a shutdown defenseman and has been doing really quite well at it. A lot of his stats say that. Now, he is... he's a right shot as well, so that makes him even more valuable if it wasn't already. He's 5'9", 167 pounds. He's from Edmonton, Alberta. Initially, he was originally drafted by the New York Islanders in the 6th round. By the way, 156 overall in 2008. So this kid's got some really good numbers. He had a career year last season. In 82 games, he had 43 points and was a -1. He especially stepped up after Matt Dumba went down, and you could say. I guess my only thing here is why 7 years? You know, he's going to be signing him to 30 till he hits 37 years old. I wouldn't want in this day in the NHL in terms of it's a young man's game, right? I don't have to tell you that, and signing a long-term deal anywhere beyond the age of 34, 35, maybe max. I mean, you know, I know players like Giordano kind of, you know, put those, throw that point off base, but 37 years old, making just over $7.5 million. And this, of course, is Bill Guerin's first signing, his first major piece of work that he's done with Minnesota. I don't know. How do you feel about that, Minnesota fans? I love the player. It's not the money necessarily that I have a beef with. That's my that's my own English language I'm speaking there. It's just the term. I just don't. Why not a 4-year term, 5-year term? Maybe this is what the camp was saying, take it or leave it. Maybe he felt pushed into a corner. I don't know. I mean, it feels like Minnesota is going to be a bottom feeder for the next couple of years, to say the least. Guerin's got his hands full just remodeling this whole team. They look like they're ready for a rebuild. I mean, they're one of the oldest players. They're slow. The whole team. It's just it needs a retool at the very least. So yeah, Wild fans, I'd like to hear your opinions on that. Moving on, the Washington Capitals and Kuznetsov. Now, of course, if you remember, a week or so ago, the IIHF suspended Kuznetsov for 4 years for finding cocaine in his system from a test that was taken during the World Championships. And now the NHL is also suspending him for 3 games. 3 games. Yeah, now it's this isn't one of the banned substances by the NHL. I mean, you get caught with these kind of drugs on the streets in most countries, and you'll see some time, right? The IIHF suspends him for 4 years. Wow, and then NHL gives him 3. I mean, what kind of message is this sending to the other players, the fan base? I don't know how I feel about this. I mean, I know a lot of players probably do it, and his only problem was that he got caught, right? But when you get caught, you gotta pay the piper because of the way it looks to everyone. I mean, these guys are looked up to by a lot of kids and so on and so forth. And the devil's advocate might be, why does he have to be a mentor to anyone? He can just be his own person, do what he wants. And I would love to hear what you have to say about this, Capital fans. There was a lot of comments on some of the news hits on this one. To say the least. Now, last bit of news. Drew Doughty opened his mouth again. The LA Kings defenseman had a nice soundbite. I just love listening to these interviews with him. He's one of my favorite players, I think, between him and Couture from the San Jose Sharks, and even Brent Burns and Joe Thornton. Just great interviews. Because generally hockey interviews are just, yeah. Anyways, he said that since we won the last cup, here's my air quotes, it's been shit. It's exactly what he said. I'm not paraphrasing. That's what he said. And no duh. LA has got a lot of problems. They're aging, old, slow team that really need to rebuild this. They need to trade out some of their veterans, relieve some cap space, bring in some younger players. You know, the usual when a team, you know, is just in total denial right now. I expect them to finish near the bottom of the league again. Now, is there a chance that maybe Rob Blake, their GM, could possibly, you know, pull a New York Rangers, Jeff Gordon, and maybe get this team turned around, you know, within 2-3 years? Sure. But they've been bad for at least a couple of years now. And they look like to be bad again. And so everyone seemed to see the writing on the wall for Los Angeles here, except for Los Angeles. I don't understand this, you know. And then Drew Doughty signs this 8-year deal worth $11 million. And all I'm thinking is, you know, your team might not be winning to near the end of that contract, right? There's a good possibility of that. And if you want to win, you might have to go somewhere else. So why would you sign such a long contract with a team knowing that? I mean, I don't know. Anyways, I've talked way too long. There you have it. Please hit that like and subscribe button. And yeah, I'll be around soon. I'm thinking about doing a little preseason rundown on all the teams before we start. Look for that. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.